Hi, we're back for the second part of the strings tutorial for basic Python tutorials. Now, I left all the other stuff back up on the screen from our last tutorial so that you could see it still. Now, what we're going to get into here is more things you can do with strings. Now, you can multiply a string, so you could make it print multiple times. What we would say is we could say hi, and then we're going to times it by 5. Now, that's going to give us hi 5 times. It concatenates it automatically and gives you one thing by that many times. Now, that may not be such a interesting thing, but when you're writing a program that's all command line and you put something like this and you say multiply that by 50, now look, you have a line that could come up in your program. So there are uses for it, not too many, but there's some. Now, another thing about Python is it has some built-in functions, which we'll get more into functions later on, and we already actually used one when we turned this integer into a string using the string function, being a function because this is the function call, and then whatever goes into the parentheses is what we're sending to the function, and this particular function returns us a string of whatever we entered here, creating that 5 into a string. Now, there's other built-in functions in Python that we're going to explore that go ahead and deal with strings. And what we're first going to do is we're going to take a variable, we'll just call it string, and we will set hello world with a space in between there to that string. Okay? Now we can say print string, and it's going to print out hello world because hello world is what we save to the variable string. And you should have already known that from when we went through it before with the numbers, how you could set things to variables. Now, something that is done with strings is they're indexed. So say I put string and I put 0 because in Python and most programming languages things start at 0, not at 1. So if I put string 0 and hit enter, it's going to return H because H is in the 0 spot on hello world, which is our string. So say I put string 10, and we'll see what we get with that. We get D, which is the very end of hello world. So this allows us to pretty much take parts of a string and put it wherever we want. Now, say you don't know how long that string is and you want to find out. You can use another built-in method called length, which is len, and then in parentheses, as you can see, you add an object and it'll give you an integer is what this is saying. So we're going to go ahead and put string into length, or len, and that's going to give us how many actual indexes are in the variable string. And in this case, we have 11. Now, if we go ahead and we want to say go from the end of the word instead of from the beginning when we want to print it out, we could do string with an index of, we'll say, -1. Now in this case, that gives us D as well, because that's showing us the very last letter in the code. When you're going with the negatives, it does start at -1 then instead of at 0. So this allows you to find parts of, or well, a certain letter in a word. Now, say you wanted to take a whole section of that world, like say we wanted to take all of world. We could take string, and then we want the index, and if you go ahead and count here, it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so it looks to start at 6. So go ahead and put 6, and then colon, and then we'll put the end bracket on there. That just means that we want it to take everything from the 6th index to the end of the word and print that out. And as that so happens, that is all of world. Now say we wanted just a part of that. We could do string, like a middle part of the word. We could do string, and then let's go with 4, and then colon, and we'll go to 6. Now that gives us just the O, which is the end of hello, and then the space, because it's starting at the 4th one, but it stops before the 6th index. So if you wanted to include those other two, you would have to do string, well, not the other two, but if you wanted to include the beginning of the second word, you'd have to do string, and then 4 and 7. And now that would give us the OW. O space W. So as you can see, you can actually take from different spots in the word. Now, say you wanted to return every so many characters in the word. There's also a way to do that with the indexes. And we can go do string, and then let's say colon and 2, meaning we want every second letter. And then hit enter, and there you go. It gives you every second letter. And I mean, you can do that however you want, and you can combine those because pretty much each colon is a spot. So if you put something in this first spot here, that's your beginning index. If you put something in this spot here, that's your ending index. And if you put something in this spot here, it's your step, which would be however many letters over you wanted to do. So if we do string and say we want to start at 1 instead of 0, and we don't want it to end until the end of the word, and we want it to do 3, we want it to step every, we'll stick with second letter, and then we run this again. Oh, I used the wrong one. And now, as you see, we get every second letter starting at spot 1, which is E. So we got the E, we skip this L, we get this L. We skip the O, and we get the space. We skip the W, get the O, skip the R, get the L, skip the D, and then we're at the end, and that all works right there. So as you can see, I mean, we actually can do things with strings. Now, say you wanted to turn a string exactly backwards from what it is. You could do string, and then our indexes, and you have those, colon, colon, and then we're going to put a -1. And now if we run that, it gives us hello world backwards. So that's an interesting thing. And again, if you do it with the negatives and you play around with the numbers, you can still do just about everything else that we did prior backwards. Now, a couple other methods that are built right in with strings. Well, we could do string, dot, which means that we are in the string class, but we're going to call the upper method, and then put those parentheses on there. And what this is going to do is that turns the whole string uppercase. And you can also do string dot capitalize capitalize, and then that gives us capitalization on just the first letter. It doesn't take from any spaces and capitalizes that though, however. And then your other option, which would actually do what you probably originally wanted, would be string dot title, and when you run that, it capitalizes everything after a space. So that's it for the second part of strings, and I hope you enjoyed that, and I'm going to let you go. Thank you.